Hello there. I definitely don't have much planned by the way of an introduction to this video, because it's sort of a hard one to introduce. It's more or less going to be a private video, because I don't have a YouTube channel as of yet, and it has to exist someplace, but I've been wanting to practice recording my voice and specifically talking about Metroidvanias because it's something that I've been thinking about how much I want to do for a long time. And it seemed like I might as well start recording things because I'm not going to get more prepared at talking about Metroidvanias by not doing it. And I have been a little bit struck by Metroid Dread for the last 24 hours. I have had my third replay going for about a month, and I mean, I did the first area with the Creed prelude and the very Metroid Dready first couple Emmys. I did that in like probably 2 sittings a while ago, but where was I? It was the middle of the week. I was thinking about, oh my gosh, the Kirby demo dropped. The Kirby demo dropped yesterday morning. It was a Thursday morning. I was exhausted. I've been exhausted for weeks. I was exhausted, and the part of me that is somewhat lucid for the first 5 minutes of being awake got to experience my first impression of 3D Kirby. So I've just been really hyped because today is also the day that Triangle Strategy comes out, and my copy didn't show up. So I am full of hype kind of going in all directions where I'm stoked about Kirby, but I can't really play any more Kirby. And I'm stoked about Triangle Strategy, but that energy hasn't gone anywhere. And it was actually seeing how well animated Kirby is that made me go, you know what? I absolutely need to be playing Metroid Dread right now. I just need to be seeing Samus Dread in her beautiful bionicle animation right now. And that went great. That went fantastic. I played quite a lot of the whole Kraid area, this time in the normal sequence, because my second run I was sequence breaking, and I quickly realized that not knowing the actual sequence takes a lot of the fun out of sequence breaking, and I lost my motivation pretty hard to do it the second time. Well, the second replay, which is the third playthrough. Anyhow, I literally couldn't stop picking it up for like hour or 2 hour long sessions and blasting through areas like Emmy sittings. And this morning, I was especially tired and had the land of cutscenes and bosses to begin. And I did that. And this is a sequence that the first time I just remembered as pretty much chaos. I just couldn't really visualize what I was doing with all of the different upgrades. All I knew is that I was fighting the sub-bosses again and again, in addition to the unique bosses of the second half, and now there were Chozo cutscenes. And my first impression was that there was also less Emmys, but now I feel like the Emmy distribution is not that bad at all for the second half. That might come up here. But what really struck me was I got really mad at the Ghavoran Elevator, and how it was the first elevator that didn't drop you off right where you're supposed to go, even though the game had been teaching us nothing besides trusting the elevators and teleporters. And basically, if you're dropped someplace, you're gonna find what you need near it. And this one dropped me in a cold hell run with a weird amount of health that I had no idea. I literally, it's a completely obscure Shine Spark puzzle, so that's why I don't remember it. But it was surrounded by a health energy upgrade on the left, where you teleport in, and a full upgrade on the right of the area, which made me feel like I really did have something to find in there, but eventually I realized, no, it just dropped me off in a terrifying refrigerator, and there's nothing to be done here. So I realized that I was mad at the Ghavoran Elevator for being the first elevator that, like, you know, you're just following the breadcrumbs, and now this drops you off in the middle of nowhere, and I imagine a lot of people got lost, but I think a normal person would have turned around. And then it's actually pretty simple. You pretty much have a 50-50 shot if you're following the trail, whether or not you go past the whale to this goddamn elevator, or you go down to literally the super missiles are right there behind the missile door. But anyhow, I was I had to take a moment and think and really ground myself in Ghavoran. And I promised myself I was going to pronounce it Ghavoran just to be consistent. But now I said Ghavoran. I don't know if I want to say Ghavoran. I feel like that would be an O. So like Dairon, that's an O. So I'm going to say Ghavoran. I haven't, it's really not something I've said out loud. There's not much for Metroid Dread that I have said out loud, which is about to change very quickly as I record this. Anyhow, I had a lot of Ghavoran thoughts, and well, I was really critical of the elevator, and I made a bunch of angry tweets at the elevator because legitimately it threw me off so bad, and more so I could picture other people being thrown off by how handholdy the game had been up till then. But then all of a sudden I had a bunch of appreciation, so I was blowing through it. I did so much this morning. I felt like every boss in the game. I still have to go and channel my energy into Ravenbeak and the Furnace boss that I adore. But I just had so many thoughts about Ghavoran that I was like, when Triangle Strategy and Pizza got taken out of my evening, I was like, I want to do something. And that something isn't homework. And now I'm procrastinating so hard that I've created the first YouTube video for this channel. And that's very different from homework or pizza. But anyhow, I have my top 10. But that's more than enough waffling now that it's been 7 minutes. I have my top 10 things that I like about Ghavoran because this made me sit and think, and I actually had some nice observations about it. So let's dive right in with number 10, the Ghavoran Elevator. I literally, this isn't scripted. I haven't had to think about this kind of thing in a long time, and I already talked about this. But what I actually like about the Ghavoran Elevator is if you're following elevators and teleporters the whole game, which you probably are, this is the first time where a normal person, and I hope that I'm correct in saying that there aren't any mandatory hell runs in the normal progression of Dread. I don't think that there are. I can't think of any. I feel like Adam tells you again and again not to mess with the hell run areas, and they're just optional. They're not hard, but if there is a hell run that's mandatory, I think there's another way around it. I'm not sure. But anyhow, I think when you're at this eastern part of Ghavoran, a lot of people are just going to go down and see the little area with the guy and the normal missile door, and they're just going to get their super missiles, which is fine. But if you don't, and you go through the exit with one of the big purple ray whales, you're going to go down there. And that, I think, is one of the first times where if you have been following closely, now you're kind of cut loose and you have to think, where do I need to go? And the map at that point will show you approximately 5 green doors, which I now realize, and I'll get to this later, might not be entirely super missiles, but it's pretty darn clear in Ghavoran when you approach that you need super missiles. And you get those, like, immediately. As soon as you decide, fuck this hell run, you can just go down to the normal missile door and get your super missiles. They're right there. And I'm pretty sure it guides you directly to the 2 doors that will bring you to Ferenia Jr. to get the other stuff going on. But I thought it was just neat that, imagining that planning, the player is either going to get to a hell run and turn around and look and be like, okay, well, there's one door. There's one missile door that I can operate besides the super missile ones. And let's just grab that. Or they're just going to grab that. And then, you've got a whole bunch of stuff. And that, I think, is probably one of the first times where you're not looking for one specific door. You've got so many to pick from. So that, I think, it gets the player's brain going, I imagine, and gets them ready for stuff like, where am I going to apply the space jump later? Which is not that open-ended, but it does require thinking. So I actually appreciate that now. It frustrated me, but now I appreciate that kind of red pills the player. It makes you start to reconsider, like, okay, now I have to be the person using the map, which I think is actually pretty fair, because I'm pretty sure you can backtrack once you get the space. No, once you get the gravity suit, you can backtrack to the Ferenia Emmy. That, or it sends you back before the final boss, because I believe I did it both ways in my first 2 playthroughs. So things do open up a little bit here, and I think the Ghavoran Elevator represents that by being the first elevator that isn't taking you where you need to go at all. So, number 9 is the forbidden material. I only collected one forbidden material. That's not what they're called. I only collected one unidentified material by doing a puzzle. It was the one in Ferenia Jr. Anyhow, I collected one of the super bombs before they're called super bombs, which are very temptingly laid out everywhere. And I'm back and forth on whether I think that's actually very motivating for the player, but I totally just grabbed one. To be totally honest, I think I had the double jump. I don't know for sure, but I saw this section with like slopes, and I think there were like the folding temporary pedal platforms, and I was just like, nope, I'm doing this. I imagine it's for once you have the space jump, but I was able to jank it out really easily with wall jumps and flash shift and the double jump. So I appreciated how easy it was to grab it just by wanting to. There's a few things I've noticed where I'm like, hey, that's not that hard of a trick. When it involves just wall jumping or flash shifts, I think that's pretty reasonable. I also think that maybe slide jumps aren't that unreasonable for the player, but this especially was like, no, I'm gonna Skyrim up this ramp, and it worked. That brings us to point number 8. It's outdoors. There's a note from Adam in one of your talks where he's like, you may be noticing that you're approaching the surface. And if he didn't tell me that, I would have noticed on my own, because you can see the sun. This is probably the only area where you can see the sun besides... Okay, so Ferenia has windows. Daddy Ferenia has a storm, but it's definitely more outdoors. Burenia, you can see the ocean. There's probably a stormy sky like Ferenia. But obviously the Cloud Palace would have... Man, that's like Grandpa Ferenia. Anyhow, yeah, it's clear that you're outdoors in Ghavoran, and I was thinking before about how the jungle and the ocean area are much needed contrasts, because Ferenia, Baby Ferenia, Daddy Ferenia, and the Sky Palace are all pretty, like Coruscant in Star Wars. They're not really nature-y. And the first 3 areas are just the factory, the fuck factory, and Ghavoran and my baby Berenia are very, very refreshing, so... The jungle theme really hit this time, maybe just because it's March and I need to touch grass, but I don't know for sure. Number 7, scaling and the super missiles. So I was noticing that things were taking a little while to kill. Like even the small little guys on the wall were taking a while to kill with missiles, but the super missile one hits them. It's funny how often in this area you'll get something. And I had to really key in this time because, to be honest, I haven't said it yet, but I think the upgrades are lame as hell by and large in this area. Super missiles immediately get replaced, and they're not that much cooler than missiles. God darn this is baby Ferenia, but it's basically a part of Ghavoran, and it's important that I feel that way. The green laser, it's very subtle, but I really like its subtle stuff, and they give you a bunch of opportunities to shoot through like the big swarm of little bean enemies and really feel how good it is. And they also give you the first couple robot sentry dudes to blast at to show off its effectiveness against robots, I think. At least it felt that way. So it did a pretty good job showing you that your new toy was going to be a little bit better for combat. And, that's kind of subtle. It kind of takes having a pack of enemies to shoot through or a robot, and that's a bit good. But I was really impressed by how the super missile one-shot a bunch of stuff that previously took many shots, which again is me looking for excitement and kind of the lamest upgrades in the game, in my current opinion. But if you actually look at the enemies they give you afterwards, it's a pretty clear bonus, and if you don't consciously notice it, you'll probably passively notice that you're kicking a little bit of extra Ghavoran ass after you get that. So I liked that a bunch, especially because you get the X breakout during this, and then stuff takes forever to kill. And I noticed in probably actual Ferenia that stuff takes forever to kill, even with the ice missiles after Ghavoran. But we're not thinking about life after ice missiles today. We're just living in the moment of Ghavoran. Number 6, the purple array attack. So I lied about not thinking about after ice missiles because you backtrack at a point which I haven't done yet in my 3rd playthrough. I don't know. Like, do you need the screw attack to get the cross bombs? I think it should just be space jump, but I don't think anybody really would backtrack with just the space jump before they get the screw attack once they're in the frozen sequence. Anyhow, I'm pretty sure this is kind of late you backtrack, but it's one of the main attractions. The only, distinct boss that Ghavoran has is the triple turtle dude, which I had to name on the fly right there. Daddy triple turtle dude has not only getting up on his hind legs, but energy attacks. And the array of purple energy that he creates is really cool. It's genuinely just one of the more pleasant things to fight in the game, I think. It's a fight that I feel like I can kind of really lay the beat down on once I figure it out, but I remember it was really intimidating the first time because it's a huge imposing enemy, and even the second form of the turtle hind leg dude is pretty imposing, but the third one's super imposing if you're not figuring out how to get around it. And then covering up the whole area in like the slow explosion array grid purple energy, it's really exciting to fight, but I think it's just very pretty. I think that the purple energy is just very cool, so give that one to Ghavoran. Number 5. This one's not exactly specific to Ghavoran. I'm pretty sure a few elevators will pop you out in an area that has blue butterflies, but I really noticed the blue butterflies in the first moment where the little, creepy lamb runs away from you and you're getting out of the elevator. I noticed a bunch of blue butterflies, which clearly are a recurring thing in Dread, and my first time seeing them was on, I think, the not mother brain energy for killing Emmys. I think that they live on those, possibly, but I remember seeing them on that, what is it called? The Emmy killing energy. I saw them kind of floating around there, and I certainly noticed them marking paths in my first playthrough, so it was kind of nice seeing them in the nature. Yeah, it was pleasant. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, get mad at me? I thought it was nice. Number 4, it's all green. Now this is something I've talked about beating around the bush a little bit, in that it's a jungle and you get the, I'm going to call it the plasma beam and the super missiles. Now the super missiles, as people said about Legends Arceus, have the shortest lifespan of any item in Dread. And they truly do have a very short lifespan for a reason that I actually like a bit that I'll get to later. But, they really are only your green missiles for so long. And as I mentioned, after you mess up the Ghavoran Elevator, you look at your map and there's like 5 green doors to hit all at once, which is kind of unparalleled in Dread as far as I can think, because most things only have like 3 doors that they open. Anyhow, one thought that I had was, and this might be a problem, when you look at that map, how many of those doors in your first door opening session are actually plasma doors? Because there's a lot of plasma doors. And as I keep saying, when you pay attention, the plasma beam was given a lot of prominence. Whether or not it deserves it or actually has that big of an impact on the game on its own, I don't know. But there's plenty of plasma doors, and God, must have been Ferenia. There was a good number of them. But even before in Ghavoran, there's just a bunch of green doors to open. I don't have much more to say besides it's kind of fun having all this green stuff happening at once. It's pretty lame. Like, it's exceptionally lame. And they both get replaced by the ice missiles and the wave beam pretty soon after. But it's a very green segment. You can't deny that it has a little bit of a cohesive identity. Number 3, the whale. I've been referring to this as like the purple wave whale enemy. You know the one. I think it's only in 2 areas. This big enemy that just like pushes you if you try to jump through it, and it just shoots this big beam underneath it that saps your energy, and it's a pretty beam. It's a very majestic whale enemy floating around, and I really noticed it immediately the first time. It's a cool one of the nature-y themed enemies. This is very cool having a big whale shoot this purple beam down. It covers up the whole room and everything. I don't know. It was neat. It's always neat. I see it and I'm like, oh hey there. It's not an enemy that I mess with very often. So shout out to the whale. Now that the whale's been mentioned, we're really getting up there. Number 2 is one of the biggest things, if not the biggest. The blue Emmy and how self-contained Ghavoran is. This probably is my biggest thought about Ghavoran, is I was very impressed by, barring Ferenia Jr., it's almost entirely self-contained, where Ferenia, yes, Ferenia and Barenia get crossed through about 1,000,000 times, and Dairon is that way too. But even barring that, all those first sections, especially the ones with the Emmys, have, like, you're there, you leave, you come back and you kill the Emmy. You go to the next one, you move forward a bit, you come back, you kill either the Emmy or Crate and then the Emmy. It's segmented. Like, pretty much everything, including Ferenia itself, has like an A side and a B side. But Ghavoran very much is, you get there and you start working on it. Because it's fresh in my memory. You fight the plant boss, which is a nice thematic transition. You end up with the butterflies and the deer. You do a fight, because now it's fight time, and you're surrounded by the super missiles, and you very well may get lost if you follow that elevator and go into a hell run, or you're just gonna get your thing, and then you get the super missiles, and then you dip out to baby Ferenia, but then you come back with your plasma beam, and then you're actually just messing around, and you get the double jump. And this is what got me. I was like, for starters, I forgot what the double jump was called. I saw spin boost, and I literally, for the entire time the item theme played, I couldn't remember what it was. I was like, huh? And then I saw it pop up, and like, I still don't know what that is. And then I saw it described, and I realized I never knew what the double jump was actually called. Yeah, I just literally forgot. I wasn't even thinking about it. I passed the area with like the crumbling platforms, and I was like, I'll be back for that later. But not once did I think, man, I wish I had a double jump, which is a damn shame, because that's one of the most anticipated things in games like Hollow Knight and stuff. Maybe even Super Metroid. No, you don't start thinking about that in Super Metroid until pretty much you're getting it, from what I remember. But anyhow, you get that, and then I'm like, is it time to go deal with the Emmy? Because I just got here. I mean, we just reactivated that Emmy, but it is time. It just takes a little bit of looking at your map, or messing around and not getting very far, because those fire plants really block you in until you get the ice missiles. But yeah, it's another one of those things where there's clearly only one thing to do, but it doesn't push you right towards it. It's just like, do you want to deal with the Emmy? And I might go far as to say that not having to carry the entire momentum of a separate section back into that section to kill the Emmy makes it feel like you're dealing with the Emmy on your own a little bit, or maybe it makes the Emmy feel more minor, which I think is relevant, because in my first playthrough I did start to feel like I was blowing through Emmys, and I think it might be because half the fun in my mind of coming back and killing the Cataris and the Dairon Emmys is you're carrying the momentum of having gone to a new area, and usually a power-up, so not only is getting to a new area fun and getting the new power-up fun, but coming back and being like, hey, I went somewhere new, and I have this shiny new ability, and I'm going to take you out. That was always kind of an essential part of the Emmy experience, and I'm going to do it again. I'm pretty darn sure you need Gravity Suit for the final Emmy, and that's more like the first ones, but in this one, I told you the whole story. You end up in Ghavoran, you go to little baby Ferenia, which is so small, and you do come back and carry that momentum, but you're carrying it for a while. You come in, and you get the double jump in Ghavoran, and then you just take it out. And it just felt very self-contained. I think the only thing I haven't done is the shit fuck shine spark puzzles, and probably space jumping for the turtle family, for the cross bombs. And that makes it just felt like a very full experience, like maybe in a more normal game. I just feel like I dealt with all of it at once. It's probably the only area in the game that you don't have an A side and a B side for, although clearly having a whole cinematic and plot thing happen in Baby Ferenia does make it feel a bit divided. But on my third playthrough, I really didn't feel like I was leaving Ghavoran at all. I just feel like I was dealing with Ghavoran directly. You can't leave Ghavoran until you have the cross bomb. And that's my number one favorite part of Ghavoran. I've just always liked this item. Like I said, I liked the fight for it. It was fun. It especially felt like I kind of wandered into it my first time, which Dread is excellent at making you feel like you discovered something obscure for Dread reasons. But it's just a nice little bomb. It also doesn't have that much time because it's one of the last upgrades, and this super bomb is the final upgrade. Power bomb? It's probably power bomb. But I don't know. I think cross bombs are just very neat. That is one thing. That is absolutely one thing where I was seeing its puzzle all throughout the game, but I guess it wasn't clearly marked, so I just kept wondering, man, I wish I had like a slightly better bomb, which is kind of a hard desire to instill in the player. Not like, oh, I need a super power bomb, but I just wish I could push myself further. And not knowing that it was coming, I was just so satisfied when I got it. And even after that initial discovery, I still just have a nice connection with it. It's just pretty. It just shoots off and across, pushes you. It's makes it easier to jump up. It's just very fun to use. I think it's really nice. Which, you know, like storm missiles and flash shift, a lot of, I think, the new Metroid Dread items, if I'm correct about which ones are new, are my favorite. So, way to go, Ghavoran. Way to go, Dread. So, if this video is public, ever, thank you for watching it. It was my first time ever talking about Metroidvanias on this channel, so I really should give it a proper signature at the end for the trivia and to embarrass myself later when people listen to it for its historical value. Thank you, Ghavoran, for my inspiration to do this, and, well, I sure am curious what's going to happen next.